everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Our guest today is Tim Draper. He's the one that's associated with wanting to change California. Tim, welcome to our program today.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
The news came out the other day. I thought when the headline came out that maybe the media is slightly biased because the headline said Draper is going to chop California into 6 states. So I think they were meaning that they didn't like what you wanted to do. Tell us a little bit about what you had to do to get the signatures and what's going to happen here in the next several months.
First, I'll take you back. I mean, I've grown up in California. I've lived in California most of my life. 40 years ago, California was number 1 in K-12 education. We were one of the best states to do business in. We had low recidivism. We had good infrastructure. California was an amazing state, but for some reason, we've gone from first in education to 47. Our prison population has quadrupled. There are 4 times as many prisoners. We have gone from first as the best state to do business in to the 50th, the worst state to do business in. And we're losing jobs. The state is not working as a unit to help 38 million people. It's people who have very different industries, different interests, and the state tries to make sort of odd compromises between all of these, and it's just too big and too high, too centrally run, and the government in Sacramento has gotten kind of isolated. They've separated themselves from us, and we've separated ourselves from them, and so it gets to be even worse because they'll come up with laws that they just think are in everybody's best interest, and it turns out that the Californians don't really get that. And so 6 Californians allows us to be closer to our government, and in some ways it gives us a choice. Each of the governments has to work to improve themselves so that their constituents are happier, and that's a really good thing. So the question you asked, which is, how did I do this? Well, we worked hard on a grassroots effort, and that grassroots effort has gotten us 1.3 million signatures. Now, it's going to be on the ballot in November of 2016, and the reason that is a good thing is that it allows people to sort of bring the thought of 6 Californians into their heart and soul and get behind one of their 6 states. And that started to happen. I mean, I even saw that Vogue magazine had something on the 6 styles of the 6 Californias. It was very fun. So this is the beginning of a really interesting movement that actually creates a government that's closer to its people and one in which the people have somewhat of a choice, and those governments will do their best to please their people. And it is all about we the people. This is great.
Now, you mentioned Sacramento, and they're not exactly enthusiastic, and you're hoping they will change their tune. But what other group would you say is in most opposition? Is there any one particular group that's more annoyed than any others?
We found a lot of resistance from lobbyists. They like being able to work the system, and they don't want anybody stepping on their toes there. Other than that, we found that at first people are saying, no, what are you doing to my state? And then when they start thinking about, well, you're not really doing anything to the state itself. What you're doing is you're making the government be more responsive to the people, and they start coming around. You know, our government is still living 40 years ago. Even the computers I see them using are just antiquated. It is
right.
It's time for something new.
Which question comes up the most, and you sort of agree, this is a legitimate question, and this is what I think. Is there one thing that they worry about the most, or are their concerns all over the place?
Interestingly, one of the biggest concerns is, well, sure, if we get this passed, great, but will the federal government ever approve 6 states? My thinking is that the federal government will eventually come around And the way it came around with Alaska was they waited for Hawaii or vice versa. One was a Republican and one was a Democrat state. And so I think if they feel like it's enough of a compromise, then they'll say, oh, okay, this is the right thing. We should allow California to be 6 states. Some of the issues they feel are concerns are actually huge benefits of having 6 states. One might be water. Right now we have a bit of a water shortage. And the reason we have that is that our infrastructure spending in the last 40 years has gone from 26% down to 3%. And we haven't kept up our waterways. Now, with 6 Californias, each new state will become more modern. They will put sensors in waterways. They will improve the infrastructure of waterways. And I think we're all going to be a lot better off. But there are always concerns because the water will be going across various state borders. That we've solved by state compact for many, many years, and shouldn't really be an issue.
Do you think that there will still be an opportunity? Because someday I think we're going to have water as being distributed more commercially, that there would be a supply and demand and charges for water. Does what you want to do, will that help encourage that? Because, that's what sometimes can solve the problem of shortages if you don't make everything for free.
It's interesting. Somehow California started out with a law that Sacramento could have all the water it wanted forever without paying anything. It turns out that probably doesn't make complete sense. It probably is not a bad idea to put some value on water. And I think generally I'm a believer in the market economy, and I think that generally we are all going to be better off if more things are based on the market economy. But that's me. I want these states to create themselves so that they can create the platforms that are right for them.
You mentioned the groups that that are in opposition or are more likely opposing what happens. I was going to ask you which group were most supportive, but I think you've already answered that. You already have 1.3 million individuals who say, yeah, let's give this some serious thought. We like this idea. Let's have a vote on this.
It has become a great grassroots effort. And the people who are really heavily supportive of this are the people in the poorest regions. And I think it's because in the current regime, they are not winning. The people in the poorest areas, the poorest people are saying, wait a second, the state is not working for me. Why don't I have a job? Why am I getting poor services? Why did this just not work for me? And I think that turns out to be one of the biggest, that's one of the most exciting parts for me, is that I felt like, wow, this really could make all of that poverty, in effect, go away. We could end up with an amazingly wealthy group of 6 states. And I think it really has to do with new platforms for growth. And I think each of these 6 states could be a platform for greatness.
I, of course, said that I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate very much what you're doing, because I think it has great significance, not only for California, but for just this general principle that I believe so strongly in, that people should have rights to self-determination and responsibility, and smaller units of government work better than larger units of government. But if anybody wants to follow up on this, which web page should they go to keep up with your activity on this issue?
Go to 6californias.com. That's sixcalifornias.com. And I think you will enjoy being a part of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of other states did something similar, where maybe New York ends up with 3 states, and your state of Texas might end up with the 5 states they were guaranteed from the beginning.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ron.
I think what Tim is talking about, I think this is going to be very important and move in this direction, because what I see around the country at the national level is failure. I see the failure of Keynesian economics. I see failure of this monetary system. I see the failure of our foreign policy, and people are ready. They are disgusted with it, so they're ready for new ideas, and I think this is just great. And I appreciate Tim Draper coming on with us today.